For generations, South Asian and Middle Eastern women have carried the weight of cultural expectations, family obligations, and societal norms that often ask them to shrink, stay silent, or put others first. But beneath those layers of conditioning lies immense strength, resilience, and wisdom. Reclaiming your power is not about rejecting your roots. It's about redefining what strength and self worth looks like on your own terms. So, in this episode, we are going to explore how to reconnect with your inner voice, break free from limiting beliefs, and step fully into the powerful, authentic woman you were always meant to be. Whether it's in your career, relationships, or personal growth, it's time to take up space and rewrite your story. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Supercharge Your Soul's Transformation Podcast. Today, I have Ruchika Mehta, who is a holistic, somatic, and psycho-spiritual therapist who helps adults reclaim their true essence and self-worth. She guides clients in healing deep patterns, connecting mind, body, and spirit. And Ruchika also supports spiritually inspired seekers on their journey of growth and transformation, helping them expand and evolve with greater awareness and love. Ruchika, I'm so excited that you're here with us today to talk about our topic, which is how do I take back my power as a South Asian or a Middle Eastern woman? Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much, Dimple. I'm so excited, really excited to be speaking with you today.
Thank you. So, Ruchika, I know this topic is like really close to my heart, and I know it's closer to you too. So, let's start with for our audience about your story. Was there a personal experience or a turning point that led you to this path of helping women reclaim their power?
Yeah, actually, it's a very long story. So let's see how it comes out. When I was a child, I used to go to sacred spaces with my mother. I was born in India and I was there for the first 12 years of my life. And I would go to sacred spaces with my mother and I would connect with the energies. And my mother also was a very devotional person. Um, and it was in early adolescence that we actually moved to the US. I think a lot happened in my life, but by the time I was in my mid 20s, late 20s, I was lost on so many levels: health, career, relationship, everything. I took it as an opportunity to realign because I had connection when I was younger with
Mhm.
the energies. I had, and at different times in my life, I had those connections. But by the time I was in my mid to late 20s, I was so disconnected. I didn't know what to do. And so I went on a dual track, really. I went to graduate school to study psychology, to become a psychotherapist. And at the same time, I also restarted my seeking journey, really. And
Mhm.
I went to a lot of different spiritual teachers. For the first few years, I was really like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And what I found was everything kind of missed me. Psychology missed me in so many ways. Spirituality missed me. Not to say that I didn't get a lot of value from them, but they missed me.
Mhm.
And they were missing what was happening for me. First of all, immigrating to the US and what that means for South Asian women, how that energetically affected me in particular. Um, but also so much, so much happens for us when we get hurt in our lives. So fast forward, I became a psychotherapist. And I also got into a piece of work called Diamond Logos, which actually is an integration of psychology and spirituality. And I've been studying that for about 16 plus years at this point. I had to go so far away from myself and really have to seek, surprisingly, to find out, oh, wow, it's not that I need to go that far away, it's that I have to return to myself.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I
Yeah,
think that's the golden nugget that our women audience on this podcast is going to hear from you. How to return back to ourselves.
yeah. And in that journey, I realized I forgot. I remembered so many things that were wrong, so many hurts, so many wounds, so much rejection that I'd experienced, but I forgot all the richness. I forgot my mother's richness. Yes, her ego, for example, may not have known how to be here for me in the way that I needed about certain things. But I forgot. Oh my gosh. I have actually been raised around women who are amazing, no matter what they experienced in their lives. They didn't lose themselves completely. And what I'm finding is that so many of us, not just me, I really went into that place, but what I found is that, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one in the US. I'm not the only one even in like India, for example.
Yeah.
It's a process that's happening. I am still in my inner journey about how do I embody who I am. I'm not there, but I've done, more than 20 years of spiritual seeking. And I have definitely made a lot of progress, but I don't claim to be fully there. It's a work in progress.
I agree. Totally agree. So, can you share with us, like, what were some of your biggest challenges that you faced during that time, especially when you came to the US, and how did you start to shift things about yourself?
Of course, on the outward thing, I was in adolescence trying to find my identity. I was, becoming, I was becoming so influenced by the world around me. I was trying to navigate being accepted, being, assimilating or something like that into the culture.
Mm-hmm.
That was on the outside. What was happening on the inside? And this is, I would say, a couple of decades of work to get here, was starting to recognize, oh, it's in the body. It is deep in the body. This is diving maybe a little bit too deeply, too quickly, but there's a way that the collective around us affects us.
Of course.
And if we look at um, Western culture, and I don't think Western culture was here a long time ago, but it's become more and more this way. So I'll give a little example of this. The value in Western white culture tends to be around individuation, which is not
Mm-hmm.
true individuation, it's isolation.
Mm-hmm. So, may I ask, because I asked you if you had any challenges that you faced during the time. And then one of the things that you were saying was that when you came to this country, you were trying to form your identity. Was that confusing for you? Because I'm just going to share for me, my biggest challenge when I came here, I was 15. I was told we were going to go back to Abu Dhabi. I came from Abu Dhabi. We're going to go back in a week. I'm just going to attend my cousin's wedding, but then I was stuck here, couldn't go back for XYZ reason. And when I was here and I had to work at the age of 15, and I'm like, I gotta pay bills? Like, wait. So all those things made me feel the same way. Like I felt like, who am I? Who am I? Why am I here? Which country is this? What is, because I was in New York. I'm like, New York is different than Abu Dhabi. So cold. Yes, so identity was definitely one of the things that I had to work on myself too. So were there any other challenges that you faced?
I mean, identity, I was made fun of. I was asked all kinds of
Mm.
questions like, do they have electricity in India? Do you
Mm.
live with tiger? I remember having muffins thrown at me in high school because I was different. I think it was really hard in the family. Um,
Mm.
it was really hard for my parents. They didn't know what hit them on some
Mm.
level. It was really on a level that, again, it's in the body, and we're not aware of what's happening inside our bodies when we shift like that.
Right.
Um, there was a lot of grief for everyone. On a conscious level, the move is good, it's great. But the
Hmm.
grief, what happened to the grief? What happened to moving from um, being being surrounded by people in a culture that is full of warmth to isolation country? It was
Makes
hard. It
sense.
was really hard for me. My adolescence, I did the best that I could, but I was hit. The whole family was hit with isolation. Nobody knew what was happening. It wasn't, you wouldn't see it so much externally that it was isolation, but
Hmm.
internally, it was like we had all become in our own little bubble. And it was really hard.
I Now I'm getting what you're saying because you're right, I mean, even in Abu Dhabi, we used to be around a lot of people, at least on weekly basis or three times a week. We had to. My dad always focused on social gatherings. And then
Mhm.
in India, yes, you're always around people.
Yeah.
Joint families, you and your neighbor knows your business and everyone's around people. So it's like we don't feel a thing because we feel like we can share our grief, right? And moving to this country, you're right. So that's the cultural shift that you're talking about, moving from individuation into to isolation. It's not really building your identity. So, yes, please go on. Tell us about this.
Also, what happens, I in one of the things that I'm realized is what happens when my language is changing. Is I in my home country, I speak Hindi. And
Mhm.
even now, when I speak Hindi, there is a sweetness to the language. There is like it vibrates differently in my body.
Mhm.
It just does. Listening to it, speaking to it, coming to the US, yes, we still had Hindi at home, but it was almost like so much of my connections were in English outside of the home. And how does that vibrate in my body? How does being in this, it was very hard. Again, all like I think outwardly you don't see the isolation, but really inwardly, it's such an experience of isolation. Even they say the frequency of the land affects us. I was not
Yeah,
on the land that was resonant with the frequency of my soul.
I agree. 100% I agree.
Yeah.
I felt it, and I know a lot of immigrants, they feel it when they come to the United States. Nothing wrong against United States. It's just like we are a different tribe.
Yeah. Because really, in South Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, people are still very heartful, very
Mm.
warm, very connected. The women that I was raised around, I think part of it is sometimes we have selective thinking, selective looking back. And so we can look at, like, oh my gosh, they were so powerless, they experienced so much oppression, which there's truth to that, right? There can
Hmm.
be truth to that, a lot of truth to that. And they navigated their lives, the women that I have I saw when I was growing up, both in India and in the US. So they navigated their lives in their own way. The egos didn't didn't know what to do with what they were experiencing, and so the egos, tried to do the best that they could. But one of the things that I recognized was, even though they might have struggled on some levels, they were so giving, so generous, so loving. They were like so yummy, really. You could feel, I could feel embraced by them without having a physical embrace, just in the sweetness of their voice, the way that they interacted with me. It was amazing. Something hitting you right now?
Big time. Because I'm thinking about my mom. I'm thinking about all the aunts that I was around, you know? And it's different when I came here. Yeah, it's totally different. So tell us, because you mentioned something about power
Mhm.
in women. So why do you think so many South Asian and Middle Eastern women feel disconnected from their power, especially being in this country?
Yeah. One is, we feel the collective,
Mm-hmm.
even though we're not conscious of it. The way that the psyches in the Western countries are, again, they're oriented around false individuation, which is actually isolation. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's in the body. So we may not feel it, but it happens to us in our bodies. We have tightnesses real deep in our bodies. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
one reason. Um, the other reason is this, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. One is we had our own wounds and hurts. What did we do with them? What did we do? We turned away from, we got mad or we got hurt, and we didn't know, how do I put this? Let me just back up a little bit, if that's okay. So the women that were around, their egos may have had a lot of trouble. They may have actually experienced a lot of difficulties in their lives. And we saw that potentially, right?
Mhm.
On one level, the physical reality, I don't want to not acknowledge it.
Yeah.
There was something in their systems. It was like they had the fountain of richness flowing through their bodies that they wouldn't turn off. They couldn't turn off. And that's what made them generous and giving and loving and heartful and warm and connected and really amazing, on so many levels. There's sweetness to them. And this is inherent in those cultures, in South Asian and Middle Eastern cultures. It's inherent in those cultures.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
part of what's happened over time is that we have, through many different ways. One is through our own hurts, our own experiences of hurts, whether we've formed an identity that's in rebellion from the hurt that we saw other people experience. Yes.
I am that person. Okay, go on. This is like
Yeah.
hitting me deep right now.
Ugh.
Amazing. Love it, Ruchika. Go on.
Yeah. Or we've like just, because we have suffered ourselves, somehow we have turned off from our own richness. We have dried up our bodies. It's like the fountain was in their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, there's projections. Should I slow down? Because it seems like,
No, no, no. I love it. What so this okay, I'm just gonna add this. I don't think everyone will understand this, but whoever gets this podcast is for them. It's not for everybody. You may not understand what she's saying. And if you don't understand, press the stop button, listen to it again tomorrow, maybe you'll get it. If you still don't understand, it's okay, move on to listen to something else. But I'm getting it because this stuff is deep. It's for those women who know the pain of what she's talking about. So please go on. So bodies dry up. That's where you were at.
Yeah.
Very funny. I mean, it's funny in a way, and I'm like, damn, this is the truth. Why no one is talking about it?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. Because it's
Mhm.
not in the field of psychology, it's not in the field of spirituality. They're missing this piece so
Yes.
much. And there's a lot of richness, but they miss this piece so much.
Hmm.
Um, so there's also projections, right, on South Asian and Middle Eastern women.
Yeah.
And so because of those projections, because of the Western influencing, the Western is better. That it's just somehow we turn against our own nature.
Right. Yeah, we have, and we became westernized.
We did, even in the East. Even
Yes.
in the East, they look to the West a lot of times. Um,
Mhm.
for like what's great because it's like a something
Yeah.
which doesn't acknowledge the richness. So what do we become? We become dry in our bodies, we become more empty, we become very image oriented. But those women that I was around, they were not. They were full, yummy, embraceable, even if the egos weren't on board with it. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying every single woman was like that, but that was the majority of what I was around. How
Yeah.
could that be the case unless it was something cultural?
Totally. I totally get this. So, what role do you think? And we're talking about culture. So, I know culture is the point. You have already talked about culture, but if there's anything else you want to add, please do. What role do you think cultural expectations and family dynamics play in this?
I feel like, in terms of family dynamics or cultural expectations, right? One of the things in a lot of the Eastern women's, Eastern cultures is like, you are our kid no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
right? It isn't
Yeah.
like you're 18 and you're out of here, you're on your own. You are our kid. There's a different attachment style, right?
Correct.
There's a different level of like a connection, I think, that happens in those cultures. Um parent again, parents embody those qualities. I didn't I From my ego, I was like, oh, especially as I entered my own therapy, I could say, oh my gosh, all these things that my parents did that were wrong. Right. Yet, who were they? Both my mom and my dad, who were they underneath that level, underneath the ego level? They actually embody, again, family dynamics, cultural expectations come from the embodiment of who they were. Slow me down if this is.
No, it's good. I'm understanding what you're saying. Right.
They
Mm-hmm.
both embodied warmth. They both embodied generosity. They both embodied love. They both embodied caring in their own ways. Even the expectations, again, I'm not saying that they did everything right, because there's still wounding, there's still hurt that
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we need to learn how to navigate and negotiate that for ourselves without losing ourselves. um but even the expectations of like, they are doing their best to also hold us in some kind of, um
Container.
yeah, yeah, whether it's an ethical container, right? Because they tend to have a lot of rules, but there's an ethical container that they're holding for us to develop as people with ethics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus when you come here and the Western ethics that are a little different than the Indian and Middle Eastern or South Asian ethics.
Yeah.
For example, drinking. Drinking
Mhm.
is okay here and drinking is not okay there. Okay, boyfriends, dating, girlfriends. Okay, dating is a big thing. All right, sex, that's a big thing. So it's like, some things are ethical, some things, oh my God, no, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Being If you're pregnant and if you're a 16-year-old in the United States, or you may be accepted maybe 80% by your family.
Mhm.
But if you're pregnant, you're 16 in India, Middle East, damn, it's a big thing.
It's a really big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So let's get into real tips. Or is there something you want to add?
I think I mentioned language. I mentioned
Mhm.
grief of moving. One of the other things is clothes.
Hmm. Yes,
You know,
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many different avenues of this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, big time. Clothes. Because I remember when I came here, I used to wear these long tops. I used to
Mhm,
always cover my butt, always. And
mhm.
then everyone's like questioning. They're like, "Why are you wearing long tops? Why are you wearing long tops?" I'm like, "I don't know. This is how I always like dressed up." And then I started changing. And then I'm like, "I don't have to wear long tops anymore." You
Yeah.
know? Now I'm like, I don't care. I still somehow on a deeper level get uncomfortable if I'm wearing a short top, but I still
Mhm,
wear it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter because I somehow changed my beliefs. But if I'm still getting uncomfortable, there must be some truth to it.
mhm.
But even today, I'm more comfortable wearing covered clothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I don't want to make a judgment call here. That's not my intention. I think we all get to choose what our path is.
Yes.
Whatever is resonant for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be that we need to choose one or the other either. But
Mm-hmm.
what is the effect of colorful clothes, right? One of the things in the East, they wear colorful clothes, glamour, the gold in the clothes, even in everyday outfit. It's colorful clothes and the affect of that in our bodies, in our hearts, in our minds. How is that? There was a time that I spent, I think when the pandemic hit, I spent time only in yoga pants for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is it. I can just, walk, exercise, whatever in my daytime. I just won't get out of my yoga pants. And I think it was like, oh my gosh, or like just wearing gray clothes or black clothes. And there's something it's about having colorful, flowing clothes, not that we have to wear them, but
Mm-hmm.
to recognize the quality that's in underneath it. There's a feeling and an affect and a quality to the clothes.
Abs-
And what
Absolutely.
happens when we change it?
Yeah, something to think about. No wonder color meditations are popular. Because it's like, okay, the more colors you have, it changes up your frequency and the energy of your body. So clothes matter. That's great. So that brings me to my next point, which is for someone just starting out on this journey,
Yeah.
she is South Asian or Middle Eastern, feels like they're out of place, don't have their power. What's the first step that they can take to reconnect with themselves, in
Yeah.
your opinion?
I think part of it is it could be as simple as remembering because we've forgotten the deeply feminine, the deeply feminine embodied juicy woman.
Yep.
One of the things is to remember that, to start to remember because we've shoved her away because of our own hurts, because of westernization, because of oppression. We've shoved her away. We want to be independent and like our, the like heroes. Wait, can I remember? And maybe not everybody has the experience of that because I feel like that has been reducing a lot. As somebody who's 25 right now may or may not have that experience so much.
True. Yeah.
So, remembering what we have forgotten, that is a good, and the remembering could happen just remembering certain women, doing it from the head, remembering certain women, remembering the feeling. Some people will connect with it in their hearts, not so much in their heads. Their hearts, they resonate right away. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten something. They can really feel the feeling of warmth of of connectedness right away. Some people, they might actually just feel it in their bodies. They start to feel like, oh my gosh, my body is feeling more filled up, I'm feeling more warm. They might start to feel like their pelvis, actually, because they were deeply in their pelvis, their
Mm-hmm.
pelvis starts to fill in and expand, and not necessarily get bigger physically, but they'll feel like
Energetically.
something is changing even in their bodies. It's
Mm-hmm.
really good to be able to have it on all the levels
Mm-hmm.
so that it gets more integrated. People can play with language, they can play with clothes, they can play with anything that kind of reminds them of what it might be like to be that woman. Another thing is grief. Sometimes you say, what's the point? I'm not going to move back. I can't even move. The place that I left no longer exists, which is true.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist in that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So then we say, oh, what's the point of feeling my grief of my loss? But really, grief transforms. We feel it, it transforms into, again, to be discovered. Does it transform into sweetness?
Interesting. So, grief about leaving your country, or is it grief about not being the woman that you used to be? Or is it grief about, because it could be all of these, right?
Yeah,
It could
grief
be
of the
grief
loss.
about, like, okay, your loss of you being in that country and you were giving and nurturing and caring, or maybe you were not because you were a kid, but maybe your moms and your aunts and your grandparents were. And then all of a sudden you come here and you're like, oh, we don't need to worry about anyone else. We have to worry about ourselves first.
Yeah.
So, how do we come out of that grief? If you can probably touch base on that, that'll be great because I know for sure most women are grieving and they don't even know what they're grieving about.
I think to feel it, to really feel it as much as one can without it becoming a rabbit hole. There's a way of
Mhm.
feeling our feelings where we're feeling them, we're witnessing them, but we're also feeling them in our bodies. Sometimes the right type of tears is what we need. They completely shift our experience in the moment. We soften, we warm, we feel more connected with our hearts. So it could be, as you said, any entry point to any point where you feel a sense of loss. I can grieve my isolation.
Do you have tips for women who are in this culture
Mhm.
that somehow feel like we talked about, some of them become rebellious because they don't know what else to become. Some of them become action oriented. Some of them become the busy woman. Someone becomes a CEO. She wants to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
All these the roles that this woman is playing in the Western world was never our role in the first place.
Mhm.
We used to not fit into these roles. We didn't think about money. We didn't think about success. We didn't think about working. So, what advice or tip or just a starting point that you would have for these personalities?
Yeah, I think it's hard because we don't really even have the role models, right? So
Yeah.
much. It's hard to find the role models of how can I be myself, my feminine self in this world instead of trying to become more masculine in order to make it. And there's like a lack of maybe even trust that am I going to make it? And I don't again want to disacknowledge the physical reality of like women make less money overall than men do. That's the truth for sure. It's I'll be honest, it's definitely a process. It's definitely a process that we have to do about saying yes to ourselves. I'm going to say yes to myself and I'm going to do my work until I can embody myself. And then actually, um, am I what I'm going to see is, am I actually doing much better in the world because I'm not exhausted, because I'm constantly saying no to myself. Can I be myself and be in this world? Or will the universe provide opportunities for me? If I can't exist in the world as it is, will the universe actually open doorways for me in a way that I am in a protected environment where I can embody myself? And it's not easy. I, I haven't found an easy way to do this. Honestly, it was hard for me working, even though I'm a therapist, working in an office and feeling so much of it is hard to show up. Therapy field is dominated by not people of color. It's like it was very hard for me to show up in that
Yeah.
way. So I don't want to make it a simple thing, but and the cost to myself is exhaustion, potentially, right? It's depression, it's anxiety, it's I look great on the outside, but internally I'm empty. I have to, are there times that I can make spaces for myself? That's what I did when I was, it was like, okay, I have to show up in the way that I have to show up here. It's not easy. And can I go into spaces? I think that's what we need actually. Can I go into spaces where I can feel, and I did, where I could feel the layers on me drop away. And I really feel passionate about this. I feel like women from South Asian and Middle Eastern culture, we need spaces where we can gather together.
Of
And
course, we need those spaces. We
we
absolutely, I 100% vouch for it. Like, we need those spaces where we can just gather, share, dance together, do yoga together, do meditation together, cook, eat, sing, talk, you know?
yeah, we really
Mhm.
need that.
Wow. Okay. I have a little bit of tears in my eyes.
Mm.
And um, I'm sure this can go through to our listeners and they can understand that this is deep. We need those spaces. And I don't want to ask you any more questions. I'm sorry, but I think you need to tell us, how can people find you?
Ah, so my website, which is my first and last name.com, so I can spell it out,
Yeah.
RUCHIKAMEHTA.com. Um, I haven't done it yet. I mean, I think this recording is going to be out later, but I have a group a workshop that I'm doing next week for
Mhm.
reclaiming our inheritance for South Asian and Middle Eastern women. It's just a one-time workshop, and I really I would love to be one of the people on this planet who can provide that space for South Asian and Middle Eastern women all over the world. I also have a decent amount of slowly growing teachings on my YouTube channel, which is also my first and last name, so YouTube at Ruchika Mehta. So those are some places where people can find me. Or
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ruchika. This was very empowering for me. And I know whoever listens to this and you understand that if you just start with remembering, and I think that's what happened on this call, on this podcast recording, I'm remembering, and that's why I'm in tears, and I'm not ashamed of it. This is who I am. I need to be. If we are sharing this message with the women that remembering is something you need to do as a first step. Hey, it just happened right now, on the spot. And if you're watching this on video, then you can see it. I don't edit my podcasts. I keep them as is. So, Ruchika, it was wonderful to have you on our show. This was very transforming, and I'm sure If you are on this path, I'm 100% sure your tribe is going to follow you. Your tribe will come to you. And the women out there who want to understand that just the step of remembering and then grieving and then creating that space where you need to be are the three steps that you can take for yourself being a South Asian or Middle Eastern or any other woman on the planet. I'm sure you'll get a lot of people. Thank you
Mm,
so much, Ruchika, for coming to our show.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Dimple.
And for all of our listeners, always remember metamorphosis, not medication. And namaste.